Are you feeling trapped? You're feeling stuck, wishing you were doing something different, wishing your life was different, thinking, I didn't sign up for this. This isn't what I dreamed of when I was a kid. This wasn't what I thought I'd be doing when I graduated high school. This is definitely not what I thought I'd be doing when I graduated college. I want something better. I want something more. Well, then you're in the right place, because we're going to talk about going from bored, going from frustrated to a life of adventure. And so we're going to talk about how do you create a life so good that you're just like, wow, this is exciting. And you're excited to wake up and go do whatever you do for a living, for work. And because it's great for you and it doesn't feel like work because you're really enjoying it. So a lot of people kind of frown on this idea. Well, you should follow your passion and do what you love and find something to do what you love, because if you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life. And some people will make this sound like it's like that's a bad thing. Well, the reason others make it sound like a bad thing is because very few people get to do this. Very few people get to create and design the life they want. And so they're just like, oh, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. It's like, this is the real world. We need to make money and pay our mortgages and the car bills and put food on the table and all this other stuff. Well, why can't you do both? Why can't you have a great job or do something for a living that you love and make really good money for it? And not only that, but also have a life of freedom so that you're controlling your time. You are controlling how much money you make. You are controlling what your life and your lifestyle is like. That's going from bored to absolutely a life of adventure. And so we're going to talk about that. So first thing we got to do is why do you feel stuck? Why do you feel stuck? Why do you feel bored? Why do you feel frustrated? Why do you feel down? Why do you even feel maybe even depressed? Why do you feel like this isn't the life that you want? Why do you feel this way? Why are you stuck? Well, that could be a very simple answer for some. Might be, well, because I hate my job. It's a garbage job. It's a temporary job. I'm not going to be here forever. Well, then you need to get a different job. If not, start your own business, a side hustle, or do something else. Okay, so that's an easy answer. Well, maybe it's because you don't feel good, healthy. Your physical fitness and your health, maybe that's not up to par. Maybe your relationships aren't up to par. Maybe you're not in a relationship, or you're not in a great one. Maybe you're in one that you should not be in and you need to get out. Maybe you're living in a place you don't want to live. Maybe you're living in the cold and you hate the cold, so you need to be living someplace warm. Or maybe you're living someplace warm and you hate the heat, so you need to move someplace that has 4 seasons, or someplace that's just cold, that's snowy. And so where is it that you live? And then, of course, what are you doing? What do you want to be doing? And so that's the next question you got to ask is wow, if I could design my life, if I could create my life, what would I do? If I could do anything, what would I do? See, if you start asking better questions, you'll get better answers. You can't always ask yourself, why does my life suck? Because you'll keep getting reasons for your life to suck. You have to ask a better question. Why does this always happen to me in a negative term? That's a question that's going to have more negative, bad things happen to you. You're going to be bringing this into your life. You're going to be manifesting these experiences. If you want to manifest, you want to bring something, you want to create something better in your life, well, then you need to start asking better questions, and you need to start feeling those questions. So why does this always happen to me? Shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't sound like that. It should be like, why does this always happen to me? So it's got to be when great things are happening, like, whoa, this is so amazing. Do you feel the energy difference in that? Because if you're down, you're like Eeyore, you're mopey, gropey, dopey, and so you're going to attract more negative, dark, gray energy like that. But if you're robust and happy and excited, even if it's not an outward expression, the emotions within are excited, then you're going to start attracting other things. You don't have to be a rambunctious, outgoing person, very vocal, but you have to feel that inside to attract the things that you want. You got to be aligned with what you want. And so you got to ask yourself better questions, and you've got to start feeling the way you want to feel. What would I do? What would my life be like if I could do anything? If I could have anything, what would I do? And so you sit there and you think about it, and you write it down in your journal, and you get clarity on what is it that you want. That's what I did when I was a carpenter. I knew I didn't want to be a carpenter for the rest of my life. My dad was a carpenter. My brother was a carpenter. My uncles were carpenters. So I became a doctor. I'm kidding. I became a carpenter, of course. And I liked it and I made good money and it was good to me for a lot of years. But I knew at some point, this isn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I started asking myself different questions. And one of those questions I asked is, if I knew I would succeed, what would I do? If failure was not an option, what would I do? And eventually the answer came after I watched a video of a guy who ran across America. And I thought, that is the most amazing, coolest thing I have ever heard of. I love it. That's what I want to do. I've been looking for something. And because I was looking for it and I had the energy to find it, I eventually found the answer to what I was looking for, but I wasn't a runner. And so with 1 year of training, I go from a non-runner to running a 26-mile marathon a day from California to New York, 100 days of running a marathon a day. Now, you may not want to run. You may not even want to run across the street. And the only time you might run is when you're running away from the police. That's not your thing. That was mine. But what is it for you? What would you do if you knew you would succeed if failure wasn't possible? Or ask another question. What would my life be like? What would I be doing? How would I be living? What would my lifestyle be like if I loved my life? What would it be? What would I do for work? Where would I live? What kind of friends would I have? What kind of house would I have? What kind of car would I drive? What would my day be like? Am I waking up early and I'm starting work? Am I waking up early? Am I going to the gym? Am I waking up late and I'm sleeping in and then I work, when I wake up? What is it like for you? See, I love getting up in the morning, early, getting up in the morning, but only if I get to sleep early at night. So I need to go to sleep early enough at night to be able to wake up early in the morning when the sun is rising and you get to hear the birds chirping for the first time. So you're having your first cup of coffee or your first cup of tea and you get to hear the birds start chirping. And the dew is in the air and the smell is different that first thing in the morning. It's amazing. And so part of my ideal life is I go to sleep early enough so I get enough sleep so I wake up fully rested and I wake up about the time of dawn and I get to hear the birds and I get to have my first cup of tea when the day is starting. And that way, by the time it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, I'm done with most of my work already because I start work early and I get it done. And so by midday, I can do whatever I want. I may keep working. I may do something different. I may work on a project. I may go for a bike ride. I may go hang out with friends. Who knows? Depends on the day. But my ideal life is that I've designed is that my schedule allows me to have the flexibility and freedom to do what I want. See, these are the questions you have to ask yourself. These are the ideas you have to think about to design your own life. So what would my life look like if it was absolutely amazing? What would I do? Where would I be? Who would I be with? Who are my friends? What would my lifestyle would be? What would my ideal schedule in that day be? And of course, every day schedule is slightly different. Weekends and weekdays are all a little different. And in general, what's my ideal day like? Do I go to yoga every day? Do I exercise every day? Do I eat healthy food every day? What is it for you? You got to think about these things in the details, and then you got to feel them as you're thinking about them, as you're writing them down and you're journaling. If you want a journal to help you through this, to help you work this out and give you a plan and a structure so that this is easy for you, go to unstoppablemorning.com. It's for free, and you can get my morning routine that will also come with my morning journal, my Unstoppable journal, so that you can start designing and getting clarity on the life that you want, as well as being so productive that you get more work done in 4 hours than you would normally get in an 8-hour day, so that you can have that freedom and structure at the end of your day, like I do. And so go to unstoppablemorning.com or click the link below and you can get my morning routine and the Unstoppable journal. But after you design your life and you start getting clarity on what it is that you want, now you have to start figuring out, well, how do I get there? How do I design a life of freedom? How do I go from where I am to where I want to be? And so if that's easy, if you're at a job that you don't like, then you simply have to, well, I'm here now. What job do I want? Well, how do I get that job? And start taking the steps to get that job. And if you don't have experience in that job, what do you have to do to get the experience in that job? Do you have to go back to school? Can you volunteer for an organization that will give you some sort of experience related to what you want to do? Or can you just go apply for that job and keep applying for that job until you get it? Maybe it's something similar to what you're doing now, or maybe it doesn't even matter that you don't have experience, depending on what you're after. As you know, probably that most people get college degrees in a field that is unrelated to what they actually do for a living. So whatever you did in college is almost irrelevant in many, many, many cases to what you actually do for a living. So if you got a college degree in psychology, you can go get a job in pretty much anything else you want. If you got a college degree in this thing, then go get a job in something else. The idea of college is that you prove that you showed up to a place for 4 years and you did really well. And that tells that employer that you have a pretty good success rate already, and they're going to take a chance on you. I'm not going to say this is going to be easy to find a job, especially if we're in an economy that's not going so great. But it's possible. So what do I do? How do I get it? Who do I need to meet? Who do I have to network with? What can I do to make my chances of getting that job easier? Nobody says creating a life you love is going to be easy, at least not all the time, but it's so worth going through that effort to get there. And so now you have to go from, okay, this is the clarity I want. How do I go from here? And how do I get to there? And it doesn't happen overnight. My idea of creating a life of freedom, a life of adventure, is not being tied to a job, not being paid by an employee, not working for hour per hour, but getting paid because of something I've created and getting paid over and over and over and over again. Now, this could be working remotely for somebody. That will give you a lot of freedom too. You're still working for the paid, working by the hour, which isn't a great thing. But when you graduate from that and you start working per project or per value that you give to somebody, then you can go from making $30, $40 an hour, whatever it is, and you can go to making $1,000. And so if you're at a job and it takes you 8 hours to finish a project and you're getting paid whatever number it is that you're getting paid, so you get paid a set amount for those 8 hours. But if you did that same job as a contractor, as a consultant, and you did the same job, you could charge $1,000 for that job, maybe $2,000, maybe $5,000, still only take you 8 hours. And yet you complete the same job and you get paid so much more because you're getting paid for the value that you create, not for the hours that you're exchanging. And so that's one way of doing it. Or you start a side business, you start a full-time business so that you can create automated cash flow so that you get paid no matter what. So whether I'm sleeping, I'm working out, I'm eating, I'm hanging out with friends, I'm having dinner, whatever it is, I'm still making money because my business is running without me. I still need to put time in. I still need to do something. So it's not fully automatic cash flow where like I'm hands off and you don't touch it. There's no such thing. But you can create a business that you will have to work so much and then you only work this much, but yet you get paid for all of this, so that you're getting paid much more than the hours. You put the work in the front. Let me give you an easy example of this. An author, especially a famous author, they'll write a book. It'll take them a few months, maybe longer to write a book, but they'll write it once and then they get paid in royalties for year after year after year after year after year. It's only one example. There's many examples. But that's the idea. You do something once and you keep getting paid for it over and over and over. Somebody who puts their money into investments, the stock market or whatever they invest in, real estate, for example, you put the money in the beginning and that will pay you over time and it'll compound and you'll make more money. So this is the idea you want to create. That's how you create a life of freedom, is that you're not working for someone hour by hour by hour and getting paid X number of dollars per hour per year. You're doing something that you get paid as you grow. It's going to keep growing more and more and more and more and more as you go through life. So instead of just getting all your life getting paid hour by hour, that amount you're making, that curve is just going up so much more. So every year you're getting wealthier and wealthier. So that's the idea of creating a life of freedom. Well, how do you get there? For most of us, we've got to get far out of our comfort zone. We're going to get far out of our comfort zone because we're in our comfort zone. And when you're in your comfort zone, it's like being in bed in the morning on a cold, chilly morning. You're in bed and you start pulling the covers off and you feel that cold and you're like, I'm not doing this. And so you go back into your covers. And then you're like, I'm just staying here. Eventually you'll get out and maybe you'll go run in and take a hot shower or something. But it's like, you don't want to get out there, or you're on the couch and you're watching a movie. And even though that movie isn't all that great and you're like, I shouldn't be watching this, but you don't get off the couch because your butt's there and you're comfy and you're just chilling out and you're relaxing and you just don't want to leave. That's our comfort zone. Those are two examples. The same thing applies to life. Same thing applies to dating. The same thing applies to any relationship. The same thing applies to your health and fitness. The same thing applies to your money. Same thing applies to your happiness and to your lifestyle. We've got to get out of our comfort zone to be able to start creating that thing that we want. So how do you get out of your comfort zone? Well, you start doing things that are just a little bit more uncomfortable for you. Or you can do things that are super uncomfortable to you until they become comfortable. You started riding a bicycle as a kid. You weren't very good. You fell down. You fell over probably many times, but eventually you learned how to wobbly ride that bicycle. Then eventually you learned how to ride it well. And eventually you learned how to ride it really, really well. Okay, maybe you didn't ride a bicycle because some people haven't. What about walking? You didn't start walking just like you're 1.5 years old and you just like get up and you start marching down the road. It doesn't happen that way. You start by crawling and then you're holding onto furniture as you're walking and then you fall and then you get up and you have to learn how to do this thing. Well, getting out of your comfort zone isn't that much different. You just have to step farther and farther out of that comfort zone and do it over and over and over. When I first started learning how to become a professional speaker from the stage, this is way, way, way before I had my TED Talks, before I spoke to corporations, before I spoke in front of a camera, before any of this stuff. To get comfortable speaking to you in front of this camera took a lot of practice, a lot of stumbling, a lot of falling, a lot of getting out of my comfort zone. First time I got onto the stage to start practicing speaking, I was holding onto that lectern for dear life. But yet that was the first time. And then after many, 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 many repetitions, it becomes so natural to me. Now it's no big deal. I still get a little nervous. Of course, most everybody does that does this kind of work, but that's totally normal. But being slightly nervous is different than not being able to do it because you're too nervous or too scared or too embarrassed or whatever it is. But you got to keep stepping out of your comfort zone. You got one job you hate, you want a job you love, well, keep applying for that job at different companies and with different people and keep reapplying and reapplying. That's out of your comfort zone, but eventually you'll get the job. You can watch shows like the Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. I mean, that was a great movie that he did back then, and that's kind of along that idea. He was stepping way out of his comfort zone to get a job that he never thought he could get, but he gave it his all, and he did eventually succeed in that. And so that's what life is. It's getting out of your comfort zone to the point that eventually you get comfortable doing the things that were once uncomfortable. And then you have to create meaningful goals. That's the next part. You got to create meaningful goals. You got to create a meaningful life. You got to create a life with purpose, because just going through life, going through the motions like a lot of people do, that's a pretty crappy way to go through life. A lot of people just show up for work. Then they come home, they eat, they watch TV, they go to sleep, and they start all over. The weekends, they might mow their lawn. They might do some repairs around the house. Maybe they go, do one fun thing over the weekend, but their life is just running by default, and it's boring, and it's not very meaningful or purposeful. To create a life, you have to create a life of meaning and purpose, and part of that goes back to what we talked about before. Well, what would my life be like if I was living an amazing life? And you have to design that. But you also have to think about, well, at the end of my life, what am I going to want to look back at? What am I going to want to remember that I did that was extraordinary and had meaning and that had purpose and was fulfilling? So for me, that was part of why I ran Across America. It's why I write books. It's why I create these videos and do all these other things. That's part of my meaning and my purpose. And this has been incredibly uncomfortable and difficult and sometimes financially terrible. But throughout all of that, eventually you create the life that you want. And then when you're in that rocking chair of life, looking back at all those years you lived, when you're old and you're gray and you can barely see and barely hear anymore, you can at least remember, what is it that I did? And so I did all these great experiences. I made all this impact in other people's lives. I had all this impact in my life. I did this, I did that. That's what life is about. So that at the end of life, you're like, this was a pretty damn good ride. If not saying, holy crap, this was an amazing ride, absolutely amazing, extraordinary ride. That's what you want, as compared to being at the end of life saying, I want more. I don't want to, I don't want to go yet. I want to go yet. I want to be at the end of life. I'm like, nope, I'm good with going. This has been a good life. This has been an amazing life. And so, okay, my time now. I don't want to be at the end of the life and saying like, damn, I wish I did this. I wish I traveled the world more. I wish I made more money. I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I was a bigger part of my kid's life. I wish. When you, that's not the way you want to end this life. So you want to create meaningful goals, create a life of purpose, and then start taking action to make that happen, because you are writing your own story. And this is where we're going to end with it. You're writing your own story. You get to write your own script. You get to write your own novel. You get to write your own book on your life. And if you don't like where you've gotten up to this point, you're about to start a new chapter. Like right after this video, that can be your new chapter. Tomorrow morning can be your new chapter. And you get to write a new chapter. And what are you going to call this chapter? How about the transformation? The year, the month, the week, the day, the moment, everything changed in my life. If you start writing a new chapter like that, well, how would you write it? Which goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. What would my life look like if it was everything I wanted? What would I do if I knew I would succeed? What would my life be like? What would my lifestyle be like if I had everything I wanted? And you write the new chapter, and then you start living that script that you're writing, that chapter you're writing, the book, the novel that you're writing. So you have to be purposeful in what you create so that you can live a life that you want. So if you haven't signed up or joined me yet for Unstoppable Morning and the Unstoppable Morning Routine and the Unstoppable Journal, go click the link down below the video, or go to unstoppablemorning.com. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope to see you in the Unstoppable community, where I teach you things that are not taught here on YouTube or anywhere public. It's just private to that group, and you get to get on calls with me and ask questions. So go ahead and join now. It's free. I'll see you there.